Discover the incredible journey of a cowboy and a freezing nurse, their unexpected love transform. The winds howled like restless spirits, wrapping Jack in a cloak of isolation as he stood on the threshold of his family's ranch. Here he was, a rugged cowboy in his 30s, staring into the vast stretches of the Wyoming landscape that made him feel so small. The land was his birthright, yet it was also a heavy mantle, one he felt crushing down with every passing day. The ranch, steeped in tradition and pride, was financially stretched, dangling by fraying threads of hope. Jack's hands, calloused from hard work, gripped the fence rail tightly as the weight of his heritage bore down on him. Would he be the last of a line built on sweat, loyalty, and resilience? The financial demons creeping closer whispered doubts, testing his mettle. As the first snowflakes began to spiral down from a slate-gray sky, signaling the impending winter, Jack's heart sank deeper. Tradition screamed for him to stay, to honor the legacy of his father and grandfather, but the cries of self-doubt filled his mind. He had given everything to this ranch, yet it felt like it might slip away. The pulse of desperation thumped in his ears. A question gnawed at him. Should he sacrifice everything for a past that may not have a future? His breath hung in the cold air, and with each exhale, the looming specter of failure whispered louder. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Across town, Sarah pulled into the familiar driveway of her childhood home. City life clung to her like a shadow, bringing with it dreams of prestigious medical programs. But the moment she entered the dilapidated clinic where she was supposed to serve, reality crashed like a cold wave. The same folks she remembered were still skeptical about her capabilities. Back when she had left for medical school, the townspeople looked to her with hope. Now they eyed her with suspicion, preferring time-tested remedies over her innovations. The exhaustion pooled in her bones as the first storm blanketed the ground in white, a stark reminder of her unwelcome return to a world that felt constricting. Jack and Sarah had crossed paths before, the rugged cowboy and the naive nurse, but now there was something raw, something urgent brewing in the torrential winds. When a medical crisis struck the clinic, both were thrown together, forcefully uniting their worlds. Jack's initial disdain for Sarah's city optimism began to waver. When her experience led them into the depths of the clinic's back room, searching for equipment. He bent low beside her, the rusted machines reflecting their hesitant bond as they stripped away their feminine and masculine layers, revealing resilient hearts beneath. Yet even as they sparked a deep connection, an unrelenting weight lingered in the air. Jack's resentment grew when he learned of Sarah's plans to leave. The very opportunity she craved felt like a blade slicing through their fragile bond. Mixed feelings of admiration and jealousy tangled within him, wrestling with the fear of losing her, as whispers of their relationship danced like wind through the snow. Could a man like him ever truly hold on to someone like her? The anxiety settled like frost in his gut, while Sarah looked up to the horizon, seeming so full of promise, and yet so bound to her own insecurities. With the storm outside intensifying, so too did the turmoil inside. Their lives, wrapped tightly in honor, ambition, and a vulnerability they dared not show, began to dangerously overlap. Would Jack fight to claim her heart, pressing against the icy fears that threatened to entrap them both? Would Sarah find a way to bridge the gap that tradition and her own ambition had created? The blizzard raged on outside, mirroring the tempest within, leaving both standing at the brink of a decision that could shatter their world or forge an unbreakable bond. Jack trudged through the deepening snow, each step a battle against the weight of uncertainty. As he reached the clinic, a surge of determination coursed through him. This was no longer just about preserving the ranch. This was about redefining it. He could feel the fissures deepening in his heart. Part of him craved the comfort of his heritage, while the other part desperately sought a way out, a way to turn things around. When he entered the clinic, the chaos of the earlier storm mirrored the turmoil inside him. The fragile lifeline he felt with Sarah was now tinged with urgency. Yet they had no time for romantic ponderings. The people in the waiting room needed their help. Jack found himself fixated on Sarah, the determined nurse who radiated purpose despite the skepticism that surrounded her. Her patience with patients was matched only by her conviction to bring new ideas to a community rooted in tradition. How could someone so different from him inspire such complexity within? "Looks like we're in for a long night," Sarah said, her hands already deftly organizing supplies. The flicker of fluorescent lights emphasized the shadows beneath her eyes, signs of her own exhaustion. "Yeah," he replied, though his mind buzzed with thoughts of their fragile connection. "I can help with the simple stuff, bandaging, moving patients. Actually, I could use another hand in the back. There's a patient who, well, let's just say we might need to think outside the box here." She hesitated, glancing at him as if gauging his willingness to step beyond his comfort zone. Her confidence was electric, igniting something within Jack. They moved into the back room, working in tandem as a crisis unfolded. It was both a physical and emotional trial. Jack realized he had a latent skill set, an instinct for assessing situations in ways he'd never acknowledged. He found a rhythm matching Sarah's approach, improvising with tools and supplies in ways that felt natural. The veils of his self-doubt began to lift, revealing a realization: he was more adaptable than he had ever believed. Yet, beneath the surface, tension brewed. Each time their eyes met, the unsaid words hovered. Possibilities and fears cycled through like the storm outside, relentless and powerful. His admiration for her intelligence mingled with dread that he would lose her once she returned to the city. The thought alone caused a knot to tighten in his chest. Why did he feel he had to anchor himself to old ways while she soared toward new horizons? As hours passed, the storm outside softened, but the struggles inside intensified. With each successful procedure, adrenaline surged through Jack, blurring the line between fear and thrill. Sarah turned to him with a smile, her eyes dancing with a spark that sent warmth flooding through his veins. "Jack, you have a knack for this," she praised, not just for the tasks, but for the newfound confidence in his abilities. The compliment caught him off guard. It felt like a lifeline in murky waters, encouraging him to dive deeper. With the crisis subsiding, a newfound sense of clarity surged in Jack. He needed to confront his fears directly, to shift the narrative of his life. But just as this realization took root, Sarah dropped the bombshell. "I need to decide soon about the city job. I can't keep coming back here." His heart plummeted. The moment pushed Jack to confront his reality, a reality where he might need to fight for his future, not only her affections, but perhaps a transformation for the ranch itself. The time had come to face what he truly wanted, he thought, clenching his fists at his side. Would he let her go, or would he make one last stand, not just for her, but for everything he stood to lose? The room felt smaller, tension ballooning between them, unresolved and poised for an explosion of truth. Jack's mind raced as the weight of Sarah's impending decision settled heavily around him. He found himself disoriented, caught between wanting to convince her to stay and recognizing that he needed to reshape his own life as well. "What do you mean by city job?" he pressed, his voice unsteady, emotions bubbling beneath the surface. "It's a position at a larger clinic back in Denver. It's a big deal, Jack. I've worked so hard to get to this point," she replied, her eyes darting away from him, as if searching for comfort in the chaos around them. "Is it what you really want?" The question hung in the air, an accusation wrapped in genuine concern. She looked back at him, surprise evident in her expression. I mean, yes, it could be an incredible opportunity. But," she trailed off, her uncertainty flaring. "But what? You don't seem entirely sold on it," he pressed, desperate to understand her hesitation, but also to reflect on his own life choices. As she began to list the pros and cons, Jack's thoughts spiraled further inward. He recognized the roots of his discontent in her words. All the years he had spent too afraid to branch out from the ranch felt like a confinement now, a house of cards ready to collapse. Deciding to turn her indecision back to himself, he asked, "Do you think you'd regret it if you didn't take that chance?" She considered him for a moment and then nodded slowly. "Yeah, there's always an element of risk in any decision. I guess I'm scared too. Change can be exhilarating, but it also means leaving behind what you know." His heart raced. Did she realize that he was wrestling with the same fear? "I've been thinking, maybe I've been too comfortable for too long," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think I'd regret it if I didn't try to change the ranch and my life, too." They both fell silent, the weight of their shared uncertainties settling thickly between them. Jack stepped closer, his intuition ignited by a newfound courage. "Maybe I could come to the clinic after this, learn more about what you do, find a way to bring what I learned back home." The words surprised even him, appearing as if pulled from a reservoir of uncharted possibility he'd long neglected. Sarah's expression shifted, momentarily brightening with intrigue. "You'd consider that?" "Yeah, I would. I think there's more out there for me than I ever realized," he replied, feeling oddly liberated. Yet beneath that liberating clarity lay an unsettling thought. No matter how far he stretched beyond these small-town limits, would he truly be ready to claim what was his? As he glanced out the window, the remnants of the storm melted into a quiet, cold beauty. The realization struck him. His relationship with Sarah, this potential transformation, couldn't simply be about fighting to keep her anchored in his uncertain world. It had to be about forging a shared future, one that melded her aspirations with his own rekindled dreams. "Let's face it together," he urged, feeling the raw tremor of vulnerability. "If you leave, I'll have to reckon with everything too. This isn't just about the ranch or a job. It's about who we want to become." He watched as a flicker of hope ignited in her eyes. With that flicker came a surge of terror. Would they both find the courage to pursue their newly laid paths? Would they create something beautiful, or shatter beneath the weight of their dreams? As they locked gazes, an unearthly tension hung in the air, laden with the promise of change and the fear of loss. The ground beneath their feet felt as if it might shatter at any moment, and Jack knew they were at the precipice of something monumental. "I want to explore all of this with you," Sarah finally breathed, her voice steady but soft. "Then let's take that leap together," he said, albeit with a pulse racing with vulnerability. In that moment, the pair stood united by a spark of understanding, but also by a churning need. As the night waned, Jack grappled with yet another layer of his internal conflict. Was he ready for the transformation that awaited him? And with that knowledge, the next storms, both within and outside, loomed ominously on the horizon. Little did they know the decisions they made tonight could either empower them or unravel the fragile fabric of their lives. As Jack took a deep breath, he sensed that the next pivotal moment was just around the corner, waiting to challenge everything he had come to know. The air in the room felt charged, vibrating with the weight of uncharted territory. Jack's heart pounded in sync with his thoughts, each beat echoing the urgency of his silent reckoning. He had toyed with ideas of leaving the ranch, but the stark reality of taking actionable steps terrified him. What if the clinic, this new world Sarah spoke of, turned out to be something he wasn't suited for? What if he failed? As they sat together in that quiet, flickering light, Jack scrutinized those feelings battling within. A small voice whispered that staying behind, rooted in the familiar soil of his ranch, held its own kind of failure. The thought hit him like a punch to the gut. He had operated too long under the illusion that mere survival was enough. Now, staring at Sarah's determination, he saw a reflection of his own latent desires unfulfilled. "Let's figure this out together," he suggested, his voice steadier than he felt. The resolve punctured the unease swirling inside him. In that moment, Jack understood the significance of seeking his own path. It became less about escaping the ranch and more about building a future, one defined not by limitations but by endless possibilities. "What if we set some goals, ones that make us both feel like we're moving forward?" he proposed, emboldened by a flicker of inspiration. Sarah's eyes sparkled. "That sounds perfect. A plan could give us structure. We can hold ourselves accountable," she exclaimed, her excitement palpable. And Jack felt his own energy begin to rise. "Like what?" he asked, genuinely interested. "We could start with timelines," she said, leaning in closer. "Maybe in 6 months I'd aim to adapt to my new role at the clinic. And in that time, you could take steps to explore how the ranch can incorporate new methods, maybe even new technology." Jack nodded, absorbing her words, ideas churning. "I could look into workshops or seminars on modern ranching techniques. Where do I even begin to find these?" "You've got Google at your fingertips," she teased. Lightly, the tension lifting, if only for a moment. "But seriously, I could help you find resources. We could research together." Jack paused, feeling an unfamiliar warmth unfurl in his chest. The prospect of collaboration struck him as profoundly energizing. It was teamwork on a scale he'd never considered. He envisioned weekends spent poring over materials amidst scattered notes, dream building and strategizing together. But the thought of stepping into the unknown still loomed ominously above him. What if he stumbled during this exploration? Would it make him look weak? Yet hadn't he spent too much time convincing himself of what he couldn't do? "I want to build something new," Jack declared thoughtfully. "Not just for me, but for the ranch itself. I see how much potential it has if I'm smart about it." A new resolve tightened in his chest, stemming not just from a desire to keep up with her ambitions, but from a genuine wish to find his own footing in this ever-changing landscape. "Exactly," Sarah urged. "The ranch isn't just a piece of land. It's an opportunity to break free from worn-out traditions and evolve." At that moment, Jack felt a rush of fear and exhilaration, both vying for dominance. He realized that facing both Sarah's departure and the uncertainties of his ranch were intertwined challenges. They weren't separate battles, but rather a connected journey toward growth and understanding. "Let's promise to check in on each other. If I'm slack, you push me to get better, okay?" "Deal," she affirmed, a radiant smile crossing her face that sparked something inside him. An ambition, a desire not just to succeed, but to surprise himself. As the conversation continued, Jack started recognizing a flicker of clarity regarding his means to embrace this change. A remarkable shift had begun, but there remained a looming question. Could he sustain it in the face of practical challenges? Their night unfolded under the canvas of shared dreams, but unresolved doubts still simmered. A fresh wave of anxiety washed over him, reminding Jack that despite their resolutions, the hardest tests always lay ahead. The following day would unfold with tasks to tackle, but the reality of the unknown seeped back into his mind. Reflections on doubts and hopes warred for dominance as he drifted to sleep. Confident but unsure, could vulnerability evolve into strength? What awaited at dawn felt like the first step into a vast, uncharted wilderness. And at that moment, Jack realized the next storm could be one that either propelled him toward greatness or dashed everything he had begun to build into the ground. Morning dawned with a tangible tension hanging in the air, the soft golden light spilling across the fields like a promise unfulfilled. Jack awoke with a racing heart, the enormity of his decisions crashing over him like a wave of icy water. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, the cool floor grounding him momentarily as he battled with his own doubts. Today marked the beginning of his commitment to changing the trajectory of the ranch. But what did that mean exactly? He had spoken so passionately about evolution and new techniques, yet now he felt like a soldier without a battle plan. The whole idea of modernizing felt nebulous and overwhelming, as if the enormity of the task loomed over him like the clouds threatening rain. After his first cup of coffee, Jack pulled out his laptop and sat at the aged, weather-beaten table in the kitchen. He typed in modern ranching techniques, and the screen lit up with an overwhelming flurry of information, articles, videos, and seminars. While the volume of data seemed daunting, the practical nature of the resources began to wear down his anxiety. This was his first actionable step. He could manage this. He clicked through several links, jotting down notes on how technology could improve cattle health and streamline the irrigation systems he had relied on for years. A flicker of excitement stirred within. He began pacing the room, mentally piecing together ideas that floated like wisps of smoke. The ranch could benefit from drone technology for monitoring crops, and perhaps solar panels could reduce costs. The vision began to crystallize, transforming into a roadmap rather than a chaotic maze. But soon enough, a jarring doubt crept back in. Would his family, particularly his father, accept this shift? The ranch had been in their family for generations, a tapestry of tradition woven tightly. Would he be abandoning that legacy, or merely weaving a new thread into it? "Shouldn't I call Dad?" Jack murmured to himself, feeling the weight of familial expectation. Taking a deep breath, he picked up the phone, hesitating momentarily at the thought of revealing his aspirations. "Hey, Dad, can we talk later?" When the conversation ended, Jack felt a mix of relief and worry. His father seemed receptive, but had been cautious. That caution felt heavier than any reluctance Jack might project. Could he redefine their legacy without causing a rift? In the afternoon light, he met Sarah back at the ranch. They settled into a rhythm of research, cheering each other on as they explored both traditional practices and emerging techniques. The synergy between them maximized their discoveries, a hidden strength that knitted their objectives closer. Each success felt monumental, a brick laid down in a wall they were collectively building. "Well, look at that," Sarah exclaimed, her eyes lighting up regarding a farming seminar scheduled near town in 2 weeks. "This could be our first step. You can network, learn, and brainstorm. It's perfect." Jack nodded, understanding the magnitude of commitment manifested in that singular event. "Can I really do this? Can I make real changes?" "Why not?" she challenged, her unwavering confidence bolstering his own. "You've got the passion, just channel it." But that nagging doubt lingered, intensifying as they began the search for travel arrangements. Would one seminar be enough? Could the ideas gained translate into action back at the ranch? He recognized that knowledge without application could lead to frustration, a trap he needed to avoid. As their research turned to logistics, Jack's thoughts wandered back home. How many times had he circled the same old routines, assuring himself that he was content, only to discover a smoldering desire for transformation? Then a reality struck him. Jack would have to be the primary catalyst of change, for better or worse. The twin fears of failure and judgment intertwined, each battling for control of his mind. For the first time, he felt the challenge was not just about ranching. This was about asserting his identity, shaping it into something that resonated deeply. Their shared determination ignited his ambition, but his internal struggle was far from over. As they packed up for the day, Sarah asked, "What's next for us?" "I need clarity on my father's expectations," he responded uncertainly. "If I can earn his support—" "Then now you march forward," she encouraged, her gaze steady. "You have the strength to question everything, including the traditions you hold dear." Jack felt a swell of determination. He understood that confrontation lay ahead, but wrapped within it was the potential for growth. Hadn't he been yearning for this moment of evolution? As he contemplated their plans for the seminar, an unexpected unease settled in. What if challenging his father's beliefs sent him spiraling back into past insecurities? The thought clenched like a fist around his heart. The open road ahead felt risky, shrouded in uncertainties, but therein lay the adventure. And with it, Jack realized he might just redefine not only the legacy of the ranch, but also his own sense of self. But as they prepared to leave, a message buzzed on his phone. The familiar name pulled him sharply back from his thoughts, a jolt of recognition igniting a new layer of tension within him, twisting the next steps into a cloud of unexpected implications. The moment of truth was nearing, and what Jack read next would make or break everything he had begun to build. Jack's thumb hovered over the notification, a prickling sensation igniting alarm bells in his stomach. The message was from Amanda, his high school friend turned NYC nurse. They had lost touch over the years, yet something about that name stirred a complex mixture of nostalgia and uncertainty within him. Just as he was bracing himself for whatever words awaited, Sarah's voice broke his concentration. "Jack, you good?" she asked, eyebrows raised in concern. He glanced at her, then back to the screen, the weight of their shared aspirations momentarily forgotten. "Yeah, just old acquaintance." "Open it," she urged, curiosity flashing in her eyes. "Could be important, you never know." With a measured breath, Jack tapped the screen. The brief message proposed a reunion, a rekindling of friendship that had once been filled with laughter, but now stood on the precipice of unfamiliarity. Amanda wanted to catch up during her upcoming visit. The flood of memories was overwhelming. They had shared dreams, secrets, and the burdens of life's choices. "Just say yes," Sarah said, breaking through Jack's reverie. "It could be helpful to talk through all this with someone who used to know you when you were still figuring things out." Jack nodded, but unease gnawed at him. How could he engage in light-hearted exchanges with Amanda when he felt entrenched in a battle for his identity and the ranch? An echo of the past whispered, insisting he stay rooted to his conflict. As he typed a non-committal response, Jack's mind spiraled into deeper consideration. The tension between tradition and innovation replayed in his thoughts. He was confronted with a dilemma. Was he ready to articulate his new vision for the ranch to someone from his past who was familiar with the old Jack? That old Jack was safe, molded by expectations, while the new version of himself felt flimsier, vulnerable under scrutiny. "Hey," Sarah's voice broke through again, nudging him back to the present. "You do realize you don't have to carry this burden alone, right?" The reminder jolted him toward clarity. Jack forced a smile, grateful for her support. Maybe reconnecting with Amanda was what he needed, a step into the light after being cloistered in uncertainty for so long. Perhaps an old friend could help him reflect on the changes cropping up in his life. "It has potential," Jack finally replied to Sarah, adopting a more open stance. But what if she sees me as a failure, stuck in this ranching rut? Sarah shook her head, her expression resolute. Jack, reinventing yourself is a journey. Everyone has their struggles. It's a matter of confronting them, not hiding behind them. Your past doesn't diminish your present. He slowly internalized her words, visualizing avenues yet to be explored. Friendships waiting on the horizon, connections to forge, risks to take. The nagging doubt clung stubbornly, but dimmed under layers of resolve. "Let's do it," he declared, his voice stronger. "I'll meet her." Sarah beamed, the lightness in her demeanor infusing him with additional energy. "See, that's the Jack I believe in. So, what next?" The conversation flowed back to the seminar and its potential impact. Jack's mind, however, still wrestled with the approaching reunion with Amanda, knowing it would force him to articulate his evolving self. It wouldn't be easy, but he could use this opportunity to practice articulating his thoughts on change, to rehearse for the inevitable conversation with his father. Jack finished up his evening with renewed clarity, feeling invigorated by small steps outside his comfort zone. But as he lay in bed later that night, he wrestled with the looming fear of both encounters, the meeting with Amanda and the conversation with his father. The pressure coiled tighter, an unspoken truth hovering in the air. When should he reveal the radical changes he hoped to implement? And would he even be able to voice the words when the moment came? As sleep refused to come, Jack replayed trepidations in his mind. The fate of his plans interlocked closely with his ability to confront his past, and in doing so, rewriting the future of the ranch along with his own identity. The light of dawn flickered through his window, offering a new beginning as well as the promise of inevitable confrontation. He recognized that the next few days held more than just meetings. They would determine how he could embrace change. The time had come to face both his past and the weight of expectation. But still, a haunting question remained. Could he truly navigate this uncharted territory without losing himself along the way? Jack stood in front of the mirror, the early morning light streaming through the window, illuminating his face. He studied his reflection, the faint lines etched around his eyes, the hint of uncertainty that lingered in his expression. It felt strange to consider himself on the brink of profound change. As he straightened his shirt, he caught himself contemplating not just the upcoming reunion with Amanda, but also the seismic shift awaiting him with his father. The ranch had shaped his childhood, rooted him in the familiarity of its vast fields and the rhythmic pattern of life it offered. Now, however, a rebellious urge surged within him, a longing to channel different approaches and ideologies into its management. He thought of the innovations he'd read about, like regenerative farming practices and sustainable practices that could breathe new life into the land. But could he convey this bold vision effectively while shrouded in the legacy of his family? Descending the stairs, Jack decided that today was pivotal. He would not only focus on the reunion, but also prepare himself for the vital conversation with his father about the direction of the ranch. Sarah's words echoed in his ears, confronting change instead of hiding from it. This was the day to feel the weight, but not be crushed by it. He brewed a pot of coffee, the rich aroma wafting through the kitchen, stoking a sense of determination as he planned the day ahead. He grabbed a notepad and began jotting down thoughts, bullet points outlining the ranch's potential with his new ideas framed around his historical knowledge. He thought about what his father valued: tradition, stability, and the legacy of ranching that spanned generations. Jack had to merge these cherished ideals with his innovative mindset if he wanted to appeal to his father and ensure the ranch survived. As the pages filled with ideas, unconventional marketing strategies, collaborations with local businesses, and embracing technology, Jack felt a surge of confidence. Perhaps his anxiety about the reunion with Amanda would mirror the conversation with his father. Each was a vital test of the version of himself he desperately wanted to express. At that moment, his phone buzzed, a message from Amanda lighting up the screen. "Looking forward to seeing you. What do you want to do?" The casual tone felt disarming, and a wave of nostalgia swept over him. He recalled laughing about foolish escapades and vivid dreams shared in youth. Nostalgia carried its weight. Could they reconnect over who they had become? A knot formed in his stomach, the duality of excitement and dread palpable. There was much he felt he needed to communicate, not just about the ranch, but about himself. A conversation that danced on the fringes of vulnerability. "Take it step by step," he whispered to himself, taking another sip of coffee. As he sat at the kitchen table staring out at the sprawling fields, he realized he was staring at more than land. He was looking at a canvas. Raw possibilities for change stared back at him, illuminated by the sun's increasing warmth. What if he were able to express his new vision to Amanda? Perhaps they shared more than just memories. She might understand the perspectives he was grappling with, representing a world he could step into without the burdensome weight of expectation. With that thought, he decided to formulate a plan for how to present his thoughts during their meeting. As he closed the notebook, a sense of urgency filled him. He felt momentum build. It was time to take definitive action, to approach both Amanda and his father not as the timid boy unsure of his identity, but as a man determined to carve out a future rooted in the past while still reaching toward what was next. Yet a simmering doubt stayed with him. If he stumbled in articulating his ideas today, how would he gather the courage needed for the impending confrontation with his father? The clock ticked steadily, each second amplifying his heartbeat. Today would be a defining moment. Today would shape not just his relationships, but his self-definition. With the day stretching out like the horizon ahead, he took a deep breath. The beginnings of his journey lay right before him. But what he had not realized yet was how deep and complex this journey of self-discovery would reach, unraveling parts of him long buried, igniting conflicts that ran deeper than nostalgia, forcing him to confront what truly mattered. The moment ahead held equal parts uncertainty and opportunity, and as he drove towards town, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was mere preparation for the conversation that would ultimately hinge on his ability to make himself known. Jack navigated the winding roads toward town, every mile feeling like a tug-of-war between enthusiasm and trepidation. The steady hum of the engine barely masked the cacophony of thoughts zigzagging through his mind. Buoyed by a rising tide of resolve, he reflected on how each movement forward flickered with potential. Yet shadows of doubt loomed nearby, threatening to cloud the clarity he hoped to achieve. He reminded himself of the conversations he longed to embrace, particularly with Amanda. They had once shared secrets and dreams as carefree as the wind rustling through the trees. What if things feel different now? The thought wrapped around him, tightening like a lasso pulled too tightly. Pulling into town, he parked and glanced at his reflection in the rearview mirror. This time he scrutinized not just the lines of experience on his face, but also the burgeoning determination radiating from his eyes. Today was more than a reunion. It was an invitation to unravel the narrative that dictated his life thus far. The teenage boy clinging to old ideals had to give way to the man yearning for authenticity. As he stepped onto the sidewalk, Jack noticed how the familiar sights stirred something within him. The antique store where he and Amanda lingered too long, the diner that served their classic breakfast fare, the vibrant farmers market where he envisioned new partnerships for the ranch. All these places held echoes of their laughter. Yet with each step, anxiety crept in. Co-workers and old friends exchanged friendly greetings, but Jack felt an invisible barrier. Engaging with them, he wondered if he appeared as a stranger in his own life. As he moved through the streets, he caught snippets of conversations, ideas for modernizing the locally run businesses, sustainable practices advocated by farmers, and a growing demand for organic produce. Inspiration struck like lightning. Could he weave his concepts into conversations today? He arrived at the cafe before his scheduled meeting with Amanda. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee was inviting, but the underlying tension in his chest felt as palpable as the smoky scent that lingered in the air. Sitting down, he pulled out the notepad once more, eyes scanning the outlines of his vision that still resonated within him. If only he could reach out and share those insights without fear. His phone buzzed, another message from Amanda. "I'm here," he read, and a tide of urgency kicked in. With a shaking hand, he smoothed down the crumpled notepad, ensuring it was hidden, his new ideas secured within him. As he looked up to spot Amanda entering, the heaviness transformed into hesitation, and suddenly all resolved courage felt teeteringly fragile. She looked different, yet achingly familiar, her confident stride uncertainly intertwined with a smile that sent warmth coursing through him. "Hey, Jack." Her voice sliced through the haze of self-doubt. "Hey, Amanda," he replied, the words hanging in the air laden with unsaid emotions. Moments slipped away as they shared updates on life, yet beneath the surface, Jack sensed the gulf between who he was then and who he'd become now. "Remember how we used to dream about changing the world?" she said wistfully, stirring memories like dust motes caught in sunlight. Those dreams felt like distant lids on fresh ideas bubbling within. Jack sensed a pivotal opportunity to share his vision, but apprehension held his tongue captive. Dreams toyed with, conversations partially captured, doubts infused every next moment with heavy stakes. "Yeah, I've been thinking about those dreams lately," he finally admitted, the vulnerability shaking in his voice. The potential for connection crackled like the air before a storm. Would this be the moment he reveal the depths of his ambitions, or retreat behind the walls of familiar banter? An abrupt rush of courage ignited as Amanda leaned in closer, her eyes sparkling with curiosity and anticipation. "What's gone through your mind, Jack?" In that instant, Jack recognized the chance to redefine everything, not only in relation to Amanda, but within himself. The layers he'd hesitated to peel back began to lift. Facing the truth of his aspirations with Amanda felt like a calculated risk, yet the longing to share burned brighter than his fear. "You know, I think I really want to do something different with the ranch." As the words hung between them, he could feel the weight of unvoiced acceptance poised at the edge of vulnerability. But would that risk forge a bridge or deepen the chasm of their past? The answer lingered tantalizingly in the air, unanswered and open-ended. Jack felt a rush of adrenaline as the words slipped from his lips, like breaking a surface that had held him captive for years. Amanda's eyes widened, an eloquent mixture of surprise and intrigue swirling through her gaze. He could almost hear her thoughts, questioning if he had become the man capable of chasing those distant dreams, or if he would retreat once again into the comfortable shadows of predictability. "What do you mean?" she asked softly, leaning in closer, as if the intensity of her interest could draw out more of his unrevealed plans. He opened his mouth, words bubbling out, but fizzling out. Here he stood, on the precipice of confrontation, not just with Amanda, but with himself, grappling with what he wanted from life and how to convey that to someone who once shared his heart. "I've envisioned transforming the ranch into something sustainable, engaging the community in ways that reflect our values," he articulated, the clarity sharpened by Amanda's encouraging demeanor. "Wow, that sounds ambitious, Jack. I didn't know you were leaning towards that direction." Her tone held a mixture of awe and playfulness, yet he couldn't shake off the inquietude that clawed at his insides. "Are you really excited about this, or is it just talk?" Amanda's eyes bore into his, searching for the conviction that had eluded him. Her challenge stirred something deeper within him, something that had been asleep for far too long. His heart rattled in his chest. "I mean it, Amanda. I feel this urgency, as if I'm awakening from a long slumber. The ranch is more than just a piece of land. It's a legacy, a source of hope. Jack's voice gained momentum, his own conviction catching fire within him as he spoke. There's a shift happening in our community. People want to invest in local. They are realizing the importance of sustainability. Why not make the ranch a hub for organic practices? Why not bring people together to revitalize the industry? Amanda's expression shifted from intrigue to contemplation, her brow furrowing slightly. I believe in those ideals, Jack, I do. But have you thought about what that means for you, for us? The weight of her question hung in the air. What did it mean for them? He was venturing into uncharted territory, and the idea of revisiting old wounds felt overwhelming. Nonetheless, he understood this conversation transcended their shared history. It was about forging a path toward a future that remained hazy at best. Jack leaned closer, their shared history threading through the conversation, compelling him to face his own hesitations. I want our past to inform our future, not imprison us. I know it's risky, Amanda, but can we redefine what we mean to each other? As he spoke, he noticed movement from the corner of his eye, an old acquaintance he had tried to evade since returning to town. Tim, a rival in their youth, approached the cafe, casting a long shadow over Jack's moment of vulnerability. Tim's presence carried with it baggage of competition, insecurities, and unresolved resentments. "Ah, look who's back in town," Tim called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm and mockery. "Figured you'd be out here talking about dreams and sustainability. Got any real plans, or just pipe dreams as always?" The insult landed heavily. Jack's stomach churned as Tim's condescension echoed through his mind. How could he reclaim the trust he was trying to build with Amanda when an old wound threatened to reopen? In that moment, anger surged through him, and he clenched his fists tightly beneath the table. What would it take to fortify his resolve against the darts of criticism? He turned back to Amanda. Her eyes reflected concern, but a part of him felt invigorated, as if standing tall against the very threat he had avoided. "I'm ready to face whatever comes my way, even if it means standing up against men like him." The moment of decision loomed. Either he could shrink back in fear of judgment, or clasp the reins of his destiny. "Jack," Amanda spoke softly, but there was an urgency beneath her tone. "Remember, exploring these ambitions means challenging the battle inside. Are you ready for that?" "I am," he replied, feeling the resolve solidify within him. But as the words left his mouth, doubt threatened to creep back in. "But can you stand with me?" In that fragile silence, where uncertainty danced like shadows in the wind, Jack knew this moment would define not only the direction of their relationship, but his personal journey toward authenticity. As Amanda's gaze locked onto his with what felt like a soft assurance, yet a flicker of doubt remained. Had he truly grasped the transformative path ahead, or would Tim's taunts unravel him at the seams? The answer rested in the stormy silence of unresolved emotions, and Jack understood with sudden clarity. This was just the beginning. His next step had to be bold. The challenge awaited him, but perhaps a confrontation with his past, rooted in fear, was precisely what he needed to ignite the ambition he felt now. But in the back of his mind loomed one burning question. Was he really ready for what that would unleash? Jack's gaze remained fixed on Amanda, their moment stretching into what felt like eternity. The weight of her question lingered, the air thick with both his vulnerability and resolve. Beyond the echoes of Tim's mocking laughter, Jack recognized that the fight lay not only with external pressures, but within himself. Could he truly embark on this path of transformation, face the judgments, and own his story? Are you prepared to embrace this new version of yourself? Amanda's voice cut through the doubt swirling in Jack's mind. "Yes," he responded, confidence pouring from his lips as if he could will the fear away. "I will confront both the judgment and the pressure. This feels right. With that affirmation emerging from his core, John felt a surge of liberation. The transformative journey he had been hesitant to embark upon was within reach, a path that demanded both courage and clarity. As the conversation deepened, Jack knew he stood at a crossroads. Every word became a celebration of his commitment, not merely to the ranch, but to an uncharted identity. He found himself articulating ideas with fervor, igniting a spark of excitement within Amanda, who listened intently and engaged with questions that pushed him further. "Jack, what do you envision your role becoming?" Amanda asked, her expression earnest, genuinely interested in the depth of his aspirations. "More than just maintaining a family legacy, I want to lead," he said, his voice strengthening with each syllable. "To innovate, and innovate with purpose. I'm not looking to erase my past, but rather to embrace it while paving a new way for future generations." As he spoke, he felt the final tendrils of trepidation dissipating, replaced by a mission-driven energy that propelled him into a transformative state. Other patrons at the cafe softened into the background, and for the first time in too long, Jack chose to occupy the space he was in fully, not held back by old narratives. "Let's build this together," Amanda replied, illuminating the room with her enthusiasm. "A community-based certification program for sustainable practices could draw in experts. You could lead workshops that bridge traditional ranching methods with contemporary needs." The prospect generated a rush of ideas, igniting a passion that felt contagious. They began exchanging thoughts that were creative and proactive, setting a broader vision and actionable steps that connected their paths once again. In sharing dreams, Jack recognized that ambition thrived best not in isolation, but in partnerships, rooted in trust and shared purpose. The meeting with Amanda marked a pivotal shift. Slowly, he began illuminating the version of himself he had been yearning to embrace publicly. There was a sense that he was not merely speaking for himself, but for an era of change that reached beyond personal ambitions to encompass the future of his family's legacy. When they finished their late morning coffee, Jack felt invigorated, energized by their exchange. He viewed Amanda differently now, not just a friend from his past, but a partner embarking on a journey he never thought possible. And the most profound realization that emerged was the understanding of how important it was to embrace both paths in conjunction with each other, not let one compromise the other. However, this recognition also sharpened the uncertainty surrounding his conversation with his father. Jack parked elsewhere and stared at the ranch, knowing what awaited him. The advance of the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the fields, illuminating the juxtaposition between their entrenched history and the hopeful future he envisioned. Soon he would have to confront the reality of his ambitions with his father, to garner not just approval, but understanding of the innovations Jack would propose. Today had filled him with courage, but would that translate into the daunting conversation yet ahead? Clenching the steering wheel, he felt the tension coil within him once more. All his successes felt fragile compared to the expectation he had yet to confront. But it was a necessary leap, one that demanded the strength cultivated in moments shared with Amanda. "Let's do this," he whispered to himself, stepping firmly from his truck as he headed towards the old wooden door he had known his entire life, the door that stood between the values instilled in him and the new vision the ranch demanded. Jack swung the door open, breathing in the familiar scent of aged wood and hay. As he crossed the threshold, he spotted his father at the kitchen table, poring over paperwork, the lines of care etched deeply across his brow. "Dad," Jack started, finding his voice trembling with the weight of pending words. Looking up, his father's expression morphed from surprise into skepticism. "Jack, you're here early. Can we talk?" The words fell heavily in what felt like a sticky silence, thick with unspoken concerns and hopes. His father nodded cautiously, gesturing to the chair opposite him. Sure. Seated face to face, Jack could feel their generational legacy build palpable tension as old stories and traditions swirled up to meet him, clouding the vision he had just begun to shape. Yet beneath that weight lay an urgency pressing for release, compelling him to articulate the transformation beheld in his heart. "Dad, I've been thinking about the ranch, and I want to redefine how we do things." His father met him with narrowed eyes, curiosity mingling with disbelief. "What do you mean?" And as Jack began to speak, the fear dissipated into the space between them, gratitude for the journey he had ventured on overwhelming him. He had come prepared, ready to prove that honoring the family's legacy and forging ahead could coexist. The words flowed naturally, fueled by newfound determination. "I want us to embrace sustainable practices, collaborate with local businesses, and listen to the community. I've found ways to innovate while preserving our roots," he asserted, watching his father closely as he spoke. With each conviction revealed, Jack felt a mosaic of possibility build before him, one where tradition and innovation melded into a new path, a legacy rich with purpose that would breathe new life into the ranch. His father's face softened, and Jack saw the acknowledgement in his eyes, the first flicker of understanding taking root. An uncharted journey of vulnerability was born, one where Jack realized that stepping into his story meant bridging the old with the new, lifting up the narratives that grounded him while allowing space for dreams yet to be written. "Can we meet where those paths intersect?" Jack implored, heartfelt. The air remained still for a moment, almost suspended. Finally, with a nod from his father, Jack began to forge a new legacy threaded with not just tradition, but undaunted aspiration. Today marked the beginning, not just of changed courses, but of an evolving identity rooted deeply in the heart of a life's journey worth pursuing. And as he spoke, Jack recognized that profound growth doesn't merely sprout in leaving past tales behind. It flourishes through embracing them for what they were, intertwining them with what is yet to come. With each word, the ranch would flourish anew beneath open skies, merging the old, the present, and the future into something remarkable. Every story needs courage, and Jack had finally stepped into his own. Now was the time to embrace both past and present and build a future emblazed with the light of possibility. The transformation awaited. He was ready, and this was only the beginning. Don't wait any longer. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories of transformation and courage. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support these powerful narratives. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Jack's inspiring journey. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of personal overcoming. This is the moment to show you're a true fan of stories that redefine life.